Hello, so welcome back to this channel. In today's tutorial, we're going to be going over something pretty interesting. A lot of people have asked me about it, so I just feel that it's time that I talk about it. So in today's tutorial, we are going to be talking about how to draw or make charts in your Android application. So on the screen is a very little application that demonstrates the kind of charts you can have in your application. So I made this application in such a way that we'll be able to go over the different types of chart that we can have with this plugin. So the plugin that is helping us to draw this chart is called Microcharts. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button. So these are all the options that I can have. So I can decide to change the type of chart that I have to a line chart. So this is a line chart. So I can change this as well to a donut. So this is a donut. And I can select bar chart, and I can change it to a radar chart as well. So these are various types of chart that we can have with this plugin. So this tutorial is going to be in two segments. So this first segment will be to cover the basics of how we can start having the charts in our application, and the other segment will cover the advanced usage of this particular plugin. So what I'm going to do will be to pull up the GitHub page. So this is the GitHub page for this plugin, Microcharts. So you can as well go to the GitHub page for further readings, and these are all the type of charts you can have out of the box, and even more, because it gives you the ability to add different customizations, which is really very useful when you're doing really advanced stuff, of which you're going to be seeing in the next video after now. So without wasting much time, let's get right into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new project. So this is going to be an Android app. So I'm going to call this Charts Android. Okay, so our project has been successfully created. The next thing we need to do will be to load up our layouts so that we can make the very simple design that we have. Okay, so our layout has completely loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to a linear layout. And this will be a linear layout as well. Alright, so let's set the orientation to vertical, which is the very normal stuff that we do whenever we are using a linear layout. Okay, so this is a problem. Now the next thing we need to have will be a card view. So from the completed project, we can see that the chart is inside a card view. So let's go ahead and add a card view. So we're going to have a card view, we're going to have a test view, and a view. Alright, so let's go ahead and have that. Okay, so we have our card view. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and start adding content inside this card view. So the first thing we need to do will be to add a linear layout inside the card view. So inside of this linear layout, the first thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add a text view. Okay, so we have a text view. Now the next thing we need to do will be to add a view under the text view. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we now have a view. A view is more like the very thin divider line under the price history text view. So as you can see here, this is the view that we just added. Alright, so now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and install the Microcharts Nugget package. So we need to open up our Nugget package manager so that we can install the plugin. Alright, so before we go ahead and install the Nugget package, it's always very important that we update our support libraries to the latest version so that we don't run into issues later on. So let's go ahead and update all of this. Okay, so now our support libraries are up to date. Let's go ahead and search for Microcharts. Alright, so we now have our results, and this is the one that we are interested in, the Microcharts. So let's go ahead and install this. Okay, so the installation was successful. So this is the time that we need to return to our XML. So we need to go ahead and add the chart plugin in our design. So how to do that is to first of all enclose it in a linear layout. So this linear layout is going to serve as a container for our chart. So I'm going to declare a new linear layout. So the width is going to be match parent, and the height is going to be wrap content. So the orientation is going to be vertical, and let's add some padding. The padding is going to be 10 dp. And finally, let's go ahead and set the layer gravity. Okay, so our chart container is ready. The next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and declare our chart. So to add our chart to our view, what we need to do will be to go ahead and say Microcharts. So this is actually what we need to add in our XML. So we're going to go ahead and set the width. The width is going to be match parent, and the height is going to be 250 dp. So you can actually select any height of your choice depending on how long you want your chart to be. So I think 250 is a good height for me. So, and the next thing I need to do would be to go ahead and set the ID of this chart so that we'll be able to reference it in our code. Okay, so our layout is ready, which is basically all we need to do at this moment. So let's go back to main activity and see how we can initialize our chart view. Okay, so here in our main activity, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this because we're not going to use it for anything, and this as well. So let's go ahead and define our chart view. So I'm going to have chart view. Let's go ahead and resolve this. Okay, so I'm going to call this chart view. Now we have that. The next thing we need to do will be to reference it. So we're going to have chart view will be equal to. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and start drawing the chart. So to be able to do that, I'm going to create a new method. So I'm going to call this draw chart. So inside of this method, we're going to be creating the data that we want to plot on the chart. So how do we create the data? Let's say, for instance, we want to plot the number of children that were given back to in a certain hospital from January to August. Alright. So to be able to create such data, we can easily refer back to the documentation. So the documentation actually showed us how to go about creating the data. So from the code that we are seeing here, every single data point that we have on our chart is going to be called an entry. So an entry requires a value, and if you want to display a label, that explains what that value is, you can have a label, say January, and you can have a value label which could be 200 as well, and you can set a color for that particular entry. So this is exactly the same method that we are going to follow in our code. So let's return back to Visual Studio and implement this. So we're actually going to try to keep things really explicit. So first of all, I'm going to make a new list. This is going to be more like a list of entries. Like I already said, that every single data point is an entry. So I'm going to make a list of entry. So we don't have entry yet, so let's go ahead and resolve this. So I'm going to call this data list. So this is going to be equal to new list of entry. So this is the point that we can now go ahead and start adding entries to this list. So this is more like a way of making things more explicit, right? So I'm going to have data list dot add new entry. So let's say, for instance, 200 kids we are giving back to in January in a certain hospital. So let's go ahead and add 200 here. So inside of this code block, we can now go ahead and add the label. Now let's go ahead and label it January. So because this is the entry for January. Now the next thing we need to do will be to define the value label. This will also be 200. Now the next thing we need to decide will be the color of this particular entry. So this is going to be equal to skcolor.parse. Okay, so let's go ahead and resolve this. So what we need to provide here will be a color code. So the color code of interest here will be 266489. Alright, so this is basically all that we need to do. So let me go ahead and explain what each of these means. So like I already said, the label is what defines the value we just provided. So as you can see here from a completed project, the January here that we see is the label, and the 200 that we see here is the value label. So let me go ahead and change this chart to a bar chart. Alright, so as you can see, this is January and this is the value label, and because it's 200, that's why we have our bar chart here. For February, you can see that the color is different and the value is 300, which is here. So what I'm going to do next will be to go ahead and provide all the necessary values for February, March, May, June, July, and August. Alright, so what we've done is to successfully provide all the necessary values. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and draw the chart proper. So to do that, we need to first of all define an instance of a chart. So I'm going to say var chart. This will be equal to, so like I already mentioned, there are different types of chart that we can have. We can have a point chart, a line chart, a donut, bar chart, or radar chart. So whichever one that we want to plot at this moment, we're going to go ahead and define it. So let's say the chart we want to have is a bar chart. So I can go ahead and define the chart as a new bar chart, and this is where we need to go ahead and pass in the values. The first and the most important value is the entries. So the entries is going to be equal to data list, which is what contains our data. And we can actually go ahead and set other attributes: the background color, the bar area, alpha, the label size, the margin, max value, mean value, point mode, point size, and all of that. But what we're going to focus on is just the entries and the label size. So the label size is how big, the January, February, and the volume labels, the value labels are going to be. So we're going to set it to something 30. Alright, so this seems like a very good label size. So we need to go ahead and now say chart view dot chart. This is going to be equal to chart. Now to verify that everything works just the way we expected it, we need to go to our onCreate method and call the drawChart method. Alright, so here I'm going to have drawChart. Bam. So this is all we need to do. So this is the time that we need to go ahead and run this on emulator so that we can see the chart that we just created. Okay, so our app is starting, and bam. So this is our chart exactly as we expected it. So we successfully created our first chart, which is a bar chart. So the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add a context menu that will allow us to be able to draw other charts using the same data. So let's go ahead and do that. So we need to return to our main activity design. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the completed projects so that we can know exactly what we want to design. Okay, so this is what we need to do. We need to add a text view and we need to add an image view. Alright, so this image view is going to always indicate that we can actually drop this down. So what I'm going to do will be to first of all go ahead and add this image. So to be able to have access to this image, you can actually clone this project from GitHub. So I'm going to add the GitHub link to this project in the video description, so you can go ahead and clone the project and the image will just be inside. So I'm going to go ahead and add the image here. Alright, so this is the image, so I'm going to go ahead and add it. Alright, now we have the image. The next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add a horizontal linear layout, and inside of it we're going to have a text view and an image view. Okay, so now we have our linear layout and a text view and image view. So we call the text view chart option text, and the image view is sort down image. So now that we have this, let's return back to our main activity and reference these views and start making use of them. Alright, so the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and create instance or text view and image view. Alright, so let's go ahead and reference these views, the normal thing that we're very used to. Alright, so now that we are done referencing these views, so we're going to go ahead and create click event handlers to these views. Like I already explained, what we want to do is that when we click on the chart options text, we're going to inflate a pop-up that is going to allow us to choose other chart types. So I'm going to go ahead and say chart option text dot click, and also I'm going to have sort image view dot click. So we're going to go ahead and make use of the same event handler for the chart options text, since they are going to be doing the same thing. Alright, now the next thing we need to do here will be to go ahead and inflate our pop-up. So if you are not very familiar with how to create pop-up menu, I have a full video on that, so I'm going to add the link somewhere here, so you can go ahead and watch the video so that you can know how to make a pop-up. So we're going to create a pop-up menu. So we're going to pass our context and the view that we want to anchor our pop-up menu to, which in this case is going to be the chart options text. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add menus to our pop-up menu. So I'm going to have popup menu dot add. So the first thing is going to be to set the group ID, which in this case we don't have group ID, so we're gonna set menu.none. Menu.none. And the next thing we need to do will be to set the item ID and the order, that's the position that we want this item to occupy. And now the title of the menu, which in this regard is going to be point chart. Alright, so we successfully added our first menu. So the next thing I need to do will be to go ahead and add line chart, donut chart, bar chart, and radar chart. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we successfully populated our menu. Now the next thing we need to do is to go ahead and show this menu. So I'm gonna have popup menu.show. So now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add a click event handler for our pop-up menu. So I'm gonna say popup menu.menu click. So this is what happens when we click on any of the menu. So what we want to do is that when we select a point chart, when we select point chart as our chart type, we're gonna go ahead and make use of this same entry, but this time around the chart type will be different. So to be able to achieve that, we need to a variable to this method. So we're gonna call this chart type. Alright, so what we want to do here is that we're going to check what chart type that this method received before we go ahead and draw this. So I'm going to use a couple of if statements to be able to do this. I'm going to say if chart type equal to point chart. It means that I want to use this entry to draw a point chart. So instead of having this as a bar chart, we're going to have it as a point chart. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for bar chart. So I'm going to say else if chart type is equal to line chart. So at this point, it means that the chart that you're interested in is the line chart. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to line chart. Okay, so this is causing errors. So I'm going to delete this. So I'm going to go ahead and do the remaining pretty quickly. So now we've successfully evaluated all these conditions. The next thing we need to do will be to return to our pop-up menu click. So what we want to do here will be to retrieve the chart type from the menu that the user clicked upon. So I'm going to say string chart type. This should be equal to e.item.title formatted to string. So this will retrieve the title of the menu that we just clicked upon. And then we can now go ahead and call the draw chart method, and we're going to pass it chart type. Boom. So this is basically all that we need to do here. But when our application is starting, as you can see, we made use of this method. So it means that we need to kind of choose the first chart that we want to display when our app is starting. So let's say we want the bar chart to just be the default chart, so which is this. Now to verify that everything works just the way we expected it, let's go ahead and run our app. So our app is starting, and bam! So we have our app fully loaded. So just like we declared in our app, the default chart is the bar chart. So we can decide to go ahead and change the bar chart to line chart, and bam! We can change this also from line chart to a donut chart, and bam! So it's just a few finishing touches that we need to do here. This is supposed to actually change to the appropriate chart type. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. So what we're going to do here will be to go ahead and say chart options test, the test. This will be equal to chart type. So this is all we need to do. So let's go ahead and confirm that this works. So our app is starting, and bam! So normally this was supposed to start from point chart, so we can go ahead and resolve that. So we have line chart, and this is showing line chart, and donut chart, this is donut chart, and bar chart, this is bar chart, and radar chart, this is radar chart. So guys, this is how to use microcharts on a very basic level to create very simple charts in your application. So guys, I would really suggest that you stay tuned for the next video. We are going to be learning how to make use of microcharts for really advanced stuff, because we are going to be using it to draw Bitcoin prices and all. So we can now understand how important this can be in building out beautiful application. So this will be all for now. If you really learned something in this video and you really enjoyed it, go ahead and hit the like button, and if this is your first time here, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and turn on the bell so that you can always get notified whenever I make this kind of video. Thank you very much for watching. I really love you.